the victim of a violent abduction near Toronto, has turned up safe. Wanzhen Lu was found in Gravenhurst, Ontario, more than 100 kilometers from where he was taken. He is now speaking to investigators about his ordeal. York Regional Police briefed reporters on their investigation this morning, and the CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick has the latest.
There are still a lot of unanswered questions surrounding how Lu was found and where he's been since he was kidnapped on Saturday evening from the underground parking garage of the condo where he lives in Markham, Ontario. As he mentioned, he was found in Gravenhurst, Ontario last night around 9 p.m. Police telling us this morning that Lu knocked on the door of a home on a rural road in that town, and the homeowner immediately called police. So the Ontario Provincial Police responded, got Lu at the home, and they brought him to a local hospital. We're told that he had minor injuries, but police wouldn't get into the details around what kinds of injuries, saying that's a private matter for Lu. But we do know on Saturday when he was abducted, police say it was a violent attack that Lu resisted as 3 men got out of a minivan, used a stun gun on him and forced him into the vehicle and drove away with him. So what they're saying now is they believe that he was dropped off by a vehicle somewhere in that area by his captors. Not that Lu escaped, but that he was released by whoever was holding him. But again, they are trying to determine and get more details. We haven't been updated yet as to the circumstances around his release. Police saying this morning it's just too early on to give us that information yet. But we do know that Lu is back in York Region, north of Toronto, and he has been spending the bulk of the day talking to investigators, Andrew.
So there are still a lot of unanswered questions. Where does the investigation go from here?
Now it shifts to hunting for the 4 suspects that police believe are involved in the abduction. On Saturday, this was captured on surveillance video from the cameras in the underground parking garage, and so police have put out images of 3 of the 4 men that are believed to be responsible for the kidnapping. They don't have an image of the driver of the van, but they do have a description of him. They did find that van, by the way, on Monday in the city of Toronto, but police tight-lipped as well on where they found the vehicle, but they are combing through it for evidence. They also say that investigators are currently in Gravenhurst, Ontario, searching the area for evidence. We know yesterday they did arrest a 35-year-old man from Toronto, but they have said today that they released that man without charges. So the focus now, trying to find those 4 suspects, Andrew. Here's more of what police are saying.
We have great video of these suspects. We put out images. We'll continue to put out more images if they become available. And any information we have on these suspects, we'll continue to put it out there until they're found. And I can tell you they will be found. It's just a matter of time. They need to seek legal counsel and turn themselves in.
So police sounding very confident that they will track these men down. And at this point, though, Andrew, the other piece, too, is the motive for this kidnapping. Police not able to answer that question yet, saying that's still under investigation. They did confirm today that, as far as they know, no ransom demands were made to Lu's family or any other kinds of demands. So they're not sure why he was taken on Saturday. They're saying that's still under investigation. And just lastly, we do know that Lu's family traveled from China to Canada in recent days. Lu is a 22-year-old man from China. He's in the Toronto area studying. They're here now, but the police officer who did that update with us this morning, not able to tell us yet whether Lu has had a chance to talk to his family or see them yet, but he does tell us they're obviously very relieved that Lu was found safe last night. Andrew?
The CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick in Aurora, Ontario. As Megan mentioned, Wanzhen Lu turned up in Gravenhurst, a small town in Ontario's cottage country. CBC News spoke to the man who found Wanzhen. We're not naming him, but here's what he told us.
I let my dog out to do her nightly business, and she started barking, and it's very dark around my house, so I thought she was barking at another animal, and I heard a voice asking for help. And I couldn't understand him because the dog was barking, so I rushed the dog back in the house, grabbed my flashlight, and I went out and found this young lad in distress at the side of the road and telling me that he had been kidnapped and could I call the police, which I did immediately and brought him into my house. Police showed up and ambulance as well to take him to the hospital, get him checked, and the investigation is now ongoing. I was kind of taken aback because it's something that you don't expect to see. Part of his hoodie was all taped up in tuck tape, So, and he told me he had been kidnapped, and that was quite obvious. That he didn't know where he was. He couldn't see because he didn't have his glasses. I'm just grateful that it turned out the way it did. Wonderful. He's back with his parents, and he's safe and sound. And I'm just happy to be a part of that, actually.
And that was CBC News speaking to the Gravenhurst, Ontario homeowner who found kidnapped victim Wanzhen Lu last night. I want to turn to Kevin Bryan now. He has been watching this all unfold. Bryan is a former detective with the York Regional Police. He's also a professor at Toronto's Seneca College. So Kevin, the victim was found last night nearly 200 kilometers from where he was kidnapped. What was your reaction when you heard this?
I was very surprised that and very pleased that he was found alive. And it kind of goes to the motive to me being money as opposed to being gang related or being some type of a vendetta against this young man. So my thinking in the fact that he was released is, I think they found themselves in over their head and didn't really understand how they could pull this off with the amount of press and trying to make contact with the victim's family as well would be very difficult to try and get some money from him.
So there had not been a ransom that was put to anybody, but that doesn't mean that you don't think that at some point they would have tried to ask for money?
Either would have tried, they could have been waiting for the family to arrive in Toronto. They could have waited for some type of whenever there's a kidnapping or something of this nature, there's usually a link somewhere. So there's a link between that victim and the family, whether it's a friend of the victims, a so-called friend, or whether it's an associate of the victims, somebody who may be able to put the two in contact. But whenever you get something like this happens, it's very rarely is it totally random. They obviously knew he was affluent. They obviously knew that he was a pretty easy target, being a Chinese national, away from his family, maybe away from his comfort zone, and all alone here in Canada. Although we don't know a lot of details there yet.
It was interesting to hear York Regional Police saying, as recently as yesterday, that they were worried about his well-being. And you mentioned off the top that you were surprised that he was found safe and sound. Tell me why.
Yeah, a lot of stress off the police having him located now. It takes a ton of pressure off the investigators because the fact is these things don't often end well, and very, very often kidnappings do wind up in homicides. And I remember one very, very similar, a Chinese national back in 2002 was kidnapped in the area of Steeles and Victoria Park Avenue, and things didn't turn out well for him. So these type of incidents can turn out bad. So very, very happy he turned out alive, and a lot of pressure off the police. This interview the police are doing with him right now will be crucial in directing the investigation, either to a very quick arrest or to more questions being asked.
It was interesting also to hear from York Regional Police saying these suspects will be found, and they sounded pretty confident about that. So how will police try and locate them?
Well, by releasing these images of the suspects, I noticed the clothing they're wearing. That's the first thing I noticed. This isn't something that you go to the Value Village and pick up a couple of cheap suits, some cheap jackets and stuff like that to go do this robbery. These four people are associated with one another, either through some type of activity, but these four suspects are all associated. And somebody knows my friend Jim has a Under Armour jacket, my buddy Steve has a Canada Goose jacket. Those pants look like Bob's. They all hang out together. Somebody can look at that clothing and associate the three. That would be my belief. And it might be the victim is the one who actually does it for police.
What do you think of where the victim showed up in Gravenhurst, and a homeowner? He was able to talk to a homeowner there and said, I've been kidnapped, call the police. He did that. What do you make of all of that?
long way to go to drop somebody off. So either he was being held up in that area, and he'll be able to tell the investigators that. So either he was up in that area at some point in a safe house up there, in a safe location up there, or maybe they dropped them off on the way to heading north and west or north and east to leave the province. The suspects could have dropped them off in that. It'll be very important to the investigators as to when he was dropped off. Was it a single individual who dropped them off? Was it a group of 3 or 4 persons who dropped them off? And was it a short drive, or was it a long, it would be about an hour and a half from the Toronto area to get up there to the Gravenhurst area. So that information will assist police, because if it was an hour and a half drive before he was dropped off, that brings him back to Toronto. If it was a very short drive to when he was dropped off, they're going to be looking up in that area for where he might have been kept up there.
I want to bring up something that police said earlier today in regards to the suspects. They said we put that appeal out there. We told them to release him. We knew they were watching, and they did just that. What does that tell you?
Well, it at some point, if you're in possession, when you got 3 or 4 suspects involved in a crime, there could be conflict within the suspects as well. That some of them somebody might want to kill him because they know who he is. Some of them may want to release him because they don't want to be involved in a homicide. So the fact that the police actually put out the plea to the kidnappers, release this person, and I mean, that could have been the reason they released them. It could have also been due to the fact that there was conflict within the group of 3 or 4.
So lots of unknowns right now. Yeah. What's the biggest question that you have?
The biggest is motive, and I think the suspect I think the victim will be able to. The victim will be able to know what in my life might lead to this. Who do I know? There's going to be something in the victim's past, or something in the victim's present life that I firmly believe if he doesn't know exactly who did it, he has a sneaking suspicion that it was either related to his, some aspect of his life.
All right.
So I think the biggest question is, once you have the motive, which I believe is going to be money, but once you have that link between who might have done this and that portion of the victim's life, that part of his life that somebody might want to go at him and try and make some money from him.
All right, good of you to take the time. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin Bryant, former York Regional Police Detective.